They made America laugh every single week for years. Their faces were in every living room. Their catchphrases became part of the language. In this video, we visit the graves of famous sitcom actors. John Ritter died September 11, 2003, age 54, buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, Hollywood Hills, California. Jack Tripper on Three's Company from 1977 to 1984, an Emmy and a Golden Globe, the most precise physical comedian of his television generation. He collapsed, rehearsing 8 simple rules, and was rushed to Providence St. Joseph Medical Center in Burbank, the same hospital where he was born. An aortic dissection misdiagnosed as a heart attack. He died that evening, 6 days before his 55th birthday. The man Don Knotts called the greatest physical comedian on the planet, dying in the hospital where he was born. Red Fox died October 25, 1991, age 68, buried at Palm Memorial Park, Las Vegas, Nevada. Fred Sanford on Sanford and Son from 1972 to 1977, the junkyard king of Watts whose fake heart attacks became one of the most imitated bits in American comedy. He had built his reputation over 3 decades of raunchy nightclub work before television found him at 49. Dying on the set of The Royal Family when his heart actually stopped, his castmates initially believing it was another performance. The Urs had seized his Las Vegas home over unpaid taxes the year before. The king of the fake heart attack, taken by the real one. Don Knotts died February 24, 2006, age 81. Buried at Westwood Village Memorial Park, Los Angeles, California. Barney Fife on The Andy Griffith Show from 1960 to 1965, 5 Emmy Awards, the single bullet carried in his shirt pocket because he could not be trusted with a loaded gun becoming the most enduring image of lovable incompetence in American television history. He worked until his final months, voicing Chicken Little and guest starring on that 70s show. Lung cancer ending him at 81. The deputy who always had 1 bullet, buried in the same city where his friend John Ritter had already been resting for 3 years. He died November 5, 1991, age 83, buried at Holy Cross Cemetery, Culver City, California. Steve Douglas on My 3 Sons from 1960 to 1972, 12 seasons as television's definitive steady father. His film career had been far more complicated, Double Indemnity and The Apartment establishing him as one of Billy Wilder's instruments for depicting moral collapse behind respectable faces. Throat cancer, leukemia, and a stroke all failed before pneumonia finally succeeded at 83. The steady television father who spent his film career playing cinema's most compromised men. Jack Klugman died December 24, 2012, age 90. Buried at Westwood Village Memorial Park, Los Angeles, California. Oscar Madison on The Odd Couple from 1970 to 1975, 2 Emmys for the role. Throat cancer in 1989, removing 1 vocal cord. His rasp afterward is recognizable as the original voice. He testified before Congress about orphan drug legislation crediting Quincy, Emmy, with drawing attention to the rare cancer he then survived. He died on Christmas Eve at 90, having outlived his oncologist. Oscar Madison buried on Christmas Eve, 23 years after the diagnosis. Vigoda died January 26, 2016, age 94, buried at Beth David Cemetery, Elmont, New York. Detective Phil Fish on Barney Miller from 1975 to 1977, the perpetually exhausted detective who looked like he had been dead for years. A false report of his death in People magazine in 1992 launched a running joke about whether he was alive, which he answered by posing in a coffin holding the issue. He died at 94, having outlived the joke by enough years to make the joke itself seem mortal. The man America spent 24 years pretending was already dead, finally dying. Frawley died March 3, 1966, age 79. Buried at San Fernando Mission Cemetery, Mission Hills, California. Fred Mertz on I Love Lucy from 1951 to 1957, the cheapest landlord in American television, the grumbling counterweight to Lucy and Ricky whose curmudgeonry made him as beloved as everyone he complained about. CBs initially refused to cast him over his documented alcoholism. Desi Arnaz vouched for him personally, and he delivered every episode sober and on time. He died of a heart attack on the sidewalk outside the Pantages Theater, returning from a movie. The grumpiest landlord in American television, dying on a public sidewalk going home from an evening out. Crane died June 29, 1978, age 49, buried at Oakwood Memorial Park, Chatsworth, California. Colonel Robert Hogan on Hogan's Heroes from 1965 to 1971, the prisoner of war comedy that should not have worked and ran for 6 seasons. Found bludgeoned to death in his Scottsdale apartment, the murder unsolved after 4 decades, a single suspect dying before trial. His personal life documented posthumously as one of addiction and obsessive video recording, a private biography entirely at odds with the cheerful colonel on screen. The man who outwitted Nazis every week, unable to identify who killed him while he slept. Bosley died October 19, 2010, age 83, buried at Hillside Memorial Park Cemetery, Los Angeles, California. Howard Cunningham on Happy Days from 1974 to 1984, 10 seasons as the hardware store owner whose patient decency made him the moral center of a show built on nostalgia. He had won a Tony Award on Broadway for Fiorello in 1960, the stage career preceding the television fame by more than a decade. Lung cancer arriving late, dying at 83 with a body of work spanning 50 years, including Father Dowling Mysteries and Murder, she wrote. Mr. C buried at Hillside, in the same cemetery as Jack Benny and Phil Silvers. Thomas died February 6, 1991, age 79. Buried at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, Memphis, Tennessee, in a chapel on the grounds of the hospital he founded. Danny Williams on Make Room for Daddy from 1953 to 1964, 11 seasons of domestic comedy. He had promised St. Stamety. He had promised St. Bawai. Jude Thaddeus in 1943, that if he found his way in life he would build a shrine. And what he built was a children's research hospital that has treated childhood cancer without turning away a patient for inability to pay since 1962. The sitcom father buried inside the promise he spent his life keeping. Benny died December 26, 1974, age 80, buried at Hillside Memorial Park Cemetery, Culver City, California. The Jack Benny program on radio and television from 1932 to 1965, 33 years built on vanity, miserliness, and the eternal lie of being 39. He was, by consensus, the most generous man in the business off-camera. After his death from pancreatic cancer, thousands of red roses arrived at his widow's home. Benny had arranged with a florist to send her one every day for the rest of her life. The most famous miser in entertainment, arranging flowers from beyond the grave. Hemsley died July 24, 2012, age 74. Buried at Evergreen Cemetery, El Paso, Texas, after a legal dispute delayed his burial for more than 50 days while his body remained in a funeral home. Competing claims over his estate fought in court. George Jefferson, on The Jeffersons from 1975 to 1985, the dry cleaning millionaire who moved on up to a deluxe apartment and spent a decade as the most triumphantly unapologetic man in American sitcom history. Lung cancer taking him at 74. George Jefferson buried in Texas, having moved up and then waiting at the door while lawyers argued over who held the key. Jim Backus died July 3, 1989, age 76, buried at Westwood Village Memorial Park, Los Angeles, California. Thurston Howell 30 on Gilligan's Island from 1964 to 1967, the millionaire castaway who managed to bring his entire wardrobe to a 3-hour tour and spent 3 seasons demonstrating that money provides no advantage whatsoever on a deserted island. He had voiced Mr. Magoo for decades and was a versatile character actor before the sitcom gave him a caricature. Parkinson's disease marking his final years, the physical control that had made him funny gradually removed. The richest man on the island, dying in Los Angeles with everyone else. Red Skelton died September 17, 1997, age 84, buried at Calvary Cemetery, Vincennes, Indiana, having requested burial in his hometown rather than in California where he made his fortune. The Red Skelton Show on television from 1951 to 1971 to 1971 to 1970, comedy in American television history. He had been born in Vincennes 2 months after his father died, raised in poverty, his clown characters defined by cheerfulness in the face of loss. He painted clowns professionally and sold them for significant sums. The man who gave away laughter all his life, going home to the city that gave him nothing but a reason to start. Phil Silvers died November 1, 1985, age 73, buried at Hillside Memorial Park Cemetery, Culver City, California. Sergeant Bilko on The Phil Silvers Show from 1955 to 1959, the fast-talking master sergeant who ran a gambling operation at Fort Baxter with cheerful audacity that the United States Army reportedly loved. 4 Emmy Awards, including Best Actor. A series of strokes in the 1970s left him partially incapacitated. A man defined by speed and verbal precision, losing both to neurological damage. He worked again before his death, but never as he once had. The fastest mouth in the history of television sitcoms, silenced by degrees. Savalas died January 22, 1994, age 70. Buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, Hollywood Hills, California. Kojak on Kojak from 1973 to 1978, the lollipop-sucking New York detective whose "Who loves ya, baby" became one of the most imitated phrases of the decade. Born in Garden City to Greek immigrant parents, he had been a news director at ABC before turning to acting in his 30s, one of the more unusual career pivots in television history, brain cancer taking him at 70. The man who made bald iconic in American television, buried at Forest Lawn in his finest suit. Isabel Sanford died July 9, 2004, age 86. Buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, Hollywood Hills, California. Louise Jefferson on The Jeffersons from 1975 to 1985, the first black woman to win an Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series. In 1981, the television medium taking 6 seasons to acknowledge what audiences understood from episode 1. She had been a stage actress in New York for decades before television found her. Buried at Forest Lawn at 86, having outlived the network that canceled her show. The first black woman to win that Emmy, collecting in the 6th year what she had earned from the first. Gavin Maclow died May 29, 2001, age 90. Buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, Glendale, California. Murray Slaughter on The Mary Tyler Moore Show from 1970 to 1977, and Captain Steubing on The Love Boat from 1977 to 1987. 2 consecutive decades of reliable television presence, the newsroom writer replaced by the cruise ship captain with no apparent discontinuity. He became a born-again Christian in the early 1980s and spoke publicly about his faith and his second marriage for the rest of his life. Dying at 90 from a brief illness. The background steadiness of 2 decades of American television gone quietly. Valerie Harper died August 30, 2019, age 80. Buried at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, Los Angeles, California. Rhoda Morgenstern on The Mary Tyler Moore Show from 1970 to 1977, 4 Emmy Awards across the series and the spin-off Rhoda, the wisecracking Bronx best friend who became as beloved as the star she was technically supporting. Diagnosed with terminal brain cancer in 2013 and told she had weeks to live, she lived for 6 more years, working until near the end. The woman given weeks, spending them filming and refusing to leave before she was ready. Mary Tyler Moore died January 25, 2017, age 80. Buried at Oak Lawn Cemetery, Fairfield, Connecticut. Laura Petrie on The Dick Van Dyke Show from 1961 to 1966, and Mary Richards on The Mary Tyler Moore Show from 1970 to 1977, 7 Emmy Awards across the 2 roles. She turned the world on with her smile and spent her later years advocating for juvenile diabetes research, the disease she had lived with for decades. Buried in Connecticut at 80, far from the Minneapolis newsroom where she had made history. Doris Roberts died April 17, 2016, age 90, buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, Glendale, California. Marie Barone on Everybody Loves Raymond from 1996 to 2005, 4 Emmy Awards, the interfering mother-in-law whose manipulations were performed with such genuine love, the audience could never decide whether to be grateful or infuriated, which was the point. She had been a character actress for 4 decades before Raymond. Died at 90. The actress who spent 40 years waiting for the role that would define her, then defining it completely. Nicholas Colasanto died February 12, 1985, age 61, buried at St. Anne's Cemetery, Cranston, Rhode Island. Coach Ernie Pantuso on Cheers from 1982 to 1985, the bartender who remembered almost nothing and understood almost everything, his gentle confusion functioning as a form of wisdom the smarter characters consistently failed to achieve. Heart disease had been weakening him during filming, the character's memory lapses covering for the actor's own. He died in the show's 3rd season, and a photo of Coach remained behind the bar through the 1993 finale. The man who forgot everything on screen, remembered behind that bar for 11 years after he was gone. Stevenson died February 15, 1996, age 66. Buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, Hollywood Hills, California. Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake on MES from 1972 to 1975, the commanding officer whose warmth anchored the show's first 3 seasons. He left voluntarily believing his film career was ready to launch, a calculation that proved entirely incorrect. His final episode, in which Henry Blake is announced killed when his plane is shot down after his discharge, remains one of the most shocking moments in American television history. Colonel Blake going home and not making it. The actor who left the greatest ensemble in television history and never found a better show. Getty died July 22, 2008, age 84. Buried at Hillside Memorial Park Cemetery, Los Angeles, California. Sophia Petrillo on The Golden Girls from 1985 to 1992, the Sicilian mother whose deadpan delivery of casual cruelty disguised as wisdom made her the moral center of a show built around women the industry had written off, winning an Emmy for playing a character supposedly older than herself. The 60-year-old playing the 80-year-old. She developed Lewy body dementia in her final years, the disease eroding the clarity that had made her so precisely funny. The youngest Golden Girl who played the oldest, buried at 84. Stiller died May 11, 2040, age 92, buried at a private location in New York City. Frank Costanza on Seinfeld from 1993 to 1998, and Arthur Spooner on The King of Queens from 1998 to 2007, 2 sitcom decades of explosive comic anger powering 2 very different shows. He had performed for decades as half of the comedy duo Stiller and Mira before television gave him a solo character operating entirely at the top of his lungs, dying at 92 during the first months of the pandemic. The man who invented Festivus, gone in the year that made every celebration feel like one. Hartman died May 28, 1998, age 49, buried at a private location in Bel Air, California. Troy McClure and Lionel Hutz on The Simpsons from 1989 to 1998, and Mel McNeil on News Radio from 1995 to 1998, 2 careers in 2 different media running simultaneously at full capacity. Shot by his wife Bryn in their Encino home in the early morning of May 28th, Bryn then taking her own life, 2 young children in the house. He had been the most reliable performer in 2 different casts. The man who could do anything anyone asked of him, unable to survive the one thing he never saw coming. Tom Posum died April 30, 2007, age 85. Buried at Westwood Village Memorial Park, Los Angeles, California. George Utley on Newhart from 1982 to 1990, the slow-witted but deeply warm Vermont handyman who anchored the show's most beloved running jokes. He had been a fixture of television comedies since Steve Allen's Variety Show in the 1950s. 5 decades of supporting roles built on a single principle: find what the show needs and give it exactly that. He married Suzanne Plachette in 2001, reuniting 2 actors from separate Bob Newhart eras in a late-life love story. Dying at 85 after a career that had always been kind to him. Lawrence Stanley died October 3, 1995, age 67. Buried at Eden Memorial Park, Mission Hills, California. Bernice Fish on Barney Miller from 1975 to 1977, the equally exhausted wife of Phil Fish. A portrait of marital resignation performed with a precision that made resignation look like wisdom. She had spent decades in character work on stage and screen, her entire career built on the willingness to make other actors look better. Colon cancer taking her at 67. The actress who made exhaustion an art form, buried while her television husband Vigoda lived 20 more years. They made America laugh. The television clicked off. In this video, we visited the graves of the people who kept it glowing.